everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing something that is just a little bit different than the videos I normally make. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm glad to have you. And if you're a repeat customer, well, I appreciate you all the more and I'm glad you're here. Normally I post videos here on my channel about minimalism every single Tuesday, and I kind of vary what it is that I post on Fridays. This month I'm going to be talking about financial health and how it relates to minimalism, at least where it pertains to me and my life, and hopefully you guys will find it helpful in your own lives. And so for today's video, I'm purely going to be talking about why it is that we need to really face our debt. A lot of you will know that I just recently graduated from university here this past May, and I also got married this summer, and we moved across the country. All of those things are really big milestones in my life, but they are also very expensive things. It is not cheap to move across the country, and anybody who's gone to school in North America knows it's not cheap to go to university here. One of the first things we really did as a newly married couple was we took a look at our finances. It's something we had talked about before we got married plenty of times, but it's something we really wanted to take a look at afterwards. So we sat down and we looked at our budget and we looked at all the numbers. And I really encourage you to do something similar. A huge turning point for me was when I realized a couple of years ago that I was paying more as a student loan payment than I was for my rent, cell phone, internet, and food combined. That is a huge eye-opener. That means the entirety of the cost I was living on was less than what I owed the government every month. I was working purely, almost, feels like purely, to pay off this debt, and I was making minimum payments. How crazy is that? Minimum payments were costing me more than this. I know that we are in a very fortunate position. Both of us get to work full time. Both of us have benefits through our jobs. And we are in a position where the amount of money we make covers life's basic needs. But when you look at what we spend our money on and how much money we make, you start to realize that my student loan is not exactly small. We also have two vehicles, one of which is paid off and the other is not. It is a fairly recent purchase. The only forms of debt in our lives at the moment are my student loan and that second vehicle. Some of my friends have very different positions. Regardless, a huge first step is just being able to sit down and look at those numbers and really know what is that total amount that you owe. What amount of debt is it that you have to face and try and conquer? Because once you know that number, it can be completely terrifying, but it's also really reassuring because there's a limit now. You know exactly what you are up against, and it makes it so much easier to plan and figure out what your next steps are going to be. So I strongly encourage you to do the math. Figure it out. Who do you owe money to? How much money do you owe? And if you're kind of keen, I would also add two more columns. What is the interest rate? And what is that minimum payment that they're asking for? And there are so many different methods and people who are going to tell you that their way is the right way. And I can make a separate video discussing all of those if that's something that interests people. But really the best way to handle your debt is to know who you owe money to, how much do you owe them, what is your minimum payment, and figure out at the absolute bare minimum Is your life set up in such a way that you can afford all of life's basic necessities and make all of those minimum payments? Because if you can't, something very much needs to change. Because at the end of the day, that budget needs to balance. Facing your debt is very much facing your fears. And when you get to the point where you decide that minimum payment is just that, it's a minimum, it's not all you're going to pay, you're really taking control of your financial situation, and you're really planning for your future life to be on much better financial footing. You're making an investment in your future self to dig yourself out of that hole. You do not have to consider yourself a minimalist to realize that if you minimize the amount of discretionary spending you use each month, you'll increase the amount that you have to put towards your debt. I don't know your financial situation, and I expect for a lot of you it's going to look different than mine. But I know that there's almost always wiggle room. And even if at the end of the month, you've only managed to somehow save $1, that is so much better than nothing. Because that dollar adds up. So I want you to be able to face your debt, look at that number, and understand that it's okay if you can't double the minimum payment every month. That's completely okay. Step one is figuring out your budget so that you can make those minimum payments every month without fail. And once you've been able to do that, step two is to figure out how you can do a little bit more. And if that means that some months things that go really well and you can double a payment one month, that's excellent. And I am so happy and proud. And if the next month you can't, you can only do the minimum payment, that's okay too. But facing your debt and using minimalism as a tool when it comes to your budget can make a huge difference. I can't tell you how to live your life. At the end of the day, I can tell you that I would love for you to be able to do that math and look at the number that you owe and make some kind of a plan to get that paid off. But it's your life and it's your decision. I think you're worth putting that in time and effort into. And I hope you agree. But I'll see you in my next video. Bye.